After 25 years apart, he sees his infertile ex-wife with 4 25-year-olds who look like him. Nathaniel Prescott strolled through the bustling streets of Portland, Oregon, his mind a swirling tempest of nostalgia. The sun cast a warm, golden hue over the quaint cafes and tree-lined sidewalks, but within him, a chill lingered. He had turned 50 just a few months prior, and the milestone had prompted him to reflect on his life, his choices, his failures, and, most hauntingly, his lost love, Lila. The vibrant autumn leaves danced in the gentle breeze, a stark contrast to the heaviness that clung to his heart. He found himself lost in memories of his youth, the days when he and Lila had been inseparable. They were young dreamers then, fueled by ambition and the intoxicating thrill of first love. Nathaniel recalled their late-night talks about the future, their laughter echoing in the empty spaces of his mind. Lila's smile had been a beacon of light, something that had guided him through many dark moments. "Remember when we thought we'd change the world, Lila?" Nathaniel muttered to himself, a bittersweet smile tugging at his lips. "And here I am, just an architect with a few buildings to my name and a heart full of regrets." As he approached his favorite cafe, the familiar scent of roasted coffee beans wafted through the air, mingling with the crispness of fall. He always found solace in this place, where he could sit and watch the world go by. But today, something felt different. There was an electric charge in the atmosphere, an unnameable anticipation that made his heart race. Nathaniel pushed the door open, the little bell above it jingling cheerfully. He scanned the room, taking in the cozy ambience filled with soft chatter and the clinking of mugs. But then his gaze fell upon her. Lila. She sat at a table with 4 young adults, each of them sharing laughter and stories, their faces illuminated by the golden sunlight streaming through the window. His breath caught in his throat. Time had been kind to Lila. She looked radiant, her hair cascading in soft waves around her shoulders, framing a face that still held the essence of the girl he had fallen in love with so many years ago. But what struck him most were the young adults surrounding her, each one strikingly reminiscent of him. They had his dark hair, his mischievous grin, and even the same intensity in their eyes. It was surreal, and Nathaniel felt a rush of emotions crashing over him, pulling him into a tide of memories he had tried to bury. "Is that really her?" he whispered, almost inaudibly, as he stood frozen just inside the cafe. The warmth of the sun felt distant now, overshadowed by the storm brewing in his heart. He wanted to approach her, to bridge the chasm of years and pain that separated them, but his feet felt anchored to the floor. "Come on, Nate, what are you waiting for?" he muttered to himself, shaking his head as he fought against the urge to turn and leave. But he couldn't. Not when Lila was so close, radiating joy and fulfillment. He hadn't seen her in over 20 years, not since their bitter divorce, and now the sight of her with these young adults, a family he hadn't known she had, was both a delight and a dagger to his heart. As he hesitated, he overheard snippets of their conversation. Lila's laughter rang like music, a sound he had longed to hear. You should have seen Nathaniel trying to draw a straight line. It was like watching a toddler with a crayon, she said, her eyes sparkling with mischief as she recounted a memory. The young adults erupted into laughter, and Nathaniel felt a pang of longing. Why do you always tell that story? One of the young men, Alex, teased, nudging Lila playfully. You're just jealous I can draw circles perfectly. Yeah, right. I'm just trying to save you from a future in architecture. Lila shot back, her voice light and teasing, but with an underlying affection that Nathaniel recognized. He couldn't help but smile at their banter, but the weight of reality crashed down on him again. He had always dreamed of having children with Lila, of building a family together. But infertility had torn them apart, leaving scars that had never fully healed. And now, here she was, a mother in every sense of the word, surrounded by what seemed to be her own children. He took a deep breath and moved to a table nearby, his heart racing. He ordered a coffee, trying to quell the storm within. As he sat, he stole glances at Lila and the young adults. They were so at ease with each other, their interactions filled with warmth and love, and it was both beautiful and painful to witness. Are you going to sit there all day, or are you going to come over and say hello? A voice suddenly broke through his reverie. He turned to see the barista, a cheerful young woman with bright blue hair and a wide grin, leaning on the counter. Nathaniel chuckled nervously. I'm just taking my time, he replied, his eyes drifting back to Lila. Just so you know, she's been talking about you for a while. You should go say hi. The barista winked, and Nathaniel felt his heart leap in his chest. Talking about me, he murmured, the words tasting foreign on his tongue. Yeah. She said you were an incredible architect and that you used to make her laugh all the time. Trust me, she's still got a soft spot for you. The barista's eyes sparkled with mischief, and Nathaniel felt a flush rise to his cheeks. Thanks for the encouragement, he said, forcing a smile, but inside, a whirlwind of anxiety churned. What would he even say? Hello, Lila. It's been 25 years. How's it going with your new family? Just then, one of the young adults, Maya, he recalled, turned and caught Nathaniel's gaze. Her eyes widened slightly, and she nudged Lila, whispering something. Lila looked up and their eyes met. For a moment, the world around them faded into a blur. Nathaniel's heart raced as he felt the weight of the years collapse into that single glance. Lila's smile faltered as recognition dawned on her face. She hesitated, her eyes searching his for answers to questions unasked. Nathaniel felt an overwhelming urge to rush over, to close the gap between them, but fear held him back. What if she had moved on? What if she was happy without him? But as Lila stood, her movements slow and deliberate, Nathaniel knew this moment was inevitable. Their past hung between them like an invisible thread, and he could sense the pull of their shared history, the love they had once cherished, and the pain that had torn them apart. With each step Lila took toward him, Nathaniel's heart raced faster. The storm inside him swelled, a chaotic mixture of hope and dread. He was about to confront the ghost of his past, and he had no idea how it would unfold. Nathaniel Prescott sat at a small table in the coffee shop, the rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee swirling around him as he absently stirred his drink. Outside, the leaves fluttered in the crisp autumn breeze, painting the streets of Portland in hues of amber and gold. But inside, Nathaniel was lost in a tempest of thoughts, his mind drifting back to memories he thought he had buried deep. He sipped his coffee, his gaze drifting toward Lila, who sat at a nearby table, her laughter ringing out like a melody that tugged at his heartstrings. It was a sound he had missed for so many years, a sound that used to fill their home with warmth and joy. She was surrounded by 4 young people who resembled him in the most uncanny way, their laughter echoing in the air as they shared stories and jokes. Nathaniel's heart plummeted as he realized the depth of this scene. They were her children, adopted, yes, but the resemblance was striking. His chest tightened as he recalled the conversations they once had about starting a family, dreams that had been crushed under the weight of infertility and heartbreak. A pang of guilt washed over him as he watched Lila interact with the young adults. How had he missed this? How had he not been a part of her life during these transformative years? The thought made his stomach churn. Just then, one of the young men, with unruly dark hair and an infectious smile, gestured animatedly, eliciting another burst of laughter from Lila. Come on, Mom. You can't be serious. You really thought you could beat me at Mario Kart? He teased, a playful glint in his eyes. You know I have the skills, Alex. It's just that you've been practicing behind my back. Lila retorted, her eyes sparkling as she leaned forward, clearly enjoying the banter. Nathaniel couldn't help but feel a surge of affection toward her. She looked radiant, full of life, and the sight of her made his heart ache with longing. He leaned back in his chair, conflicted. Should he approach her? Should he interrupt this moment of happiness? He felt like an intruder in a world he once belonged to. The laughter, the joy, it was all so foreign yet so achingly familiar. He wished he could erase the years of separation, the pain they had both endured, but reality held him captive in a cage of his own making. As he sat there, Nathaniel couldn't shake the feeling of being drawn into their world. He knew he should leave, but the magnetism of Lila's presence held him in place. He felt like a ghost, haunting a life that wasn't his anymore. The young adults continued to share their stories, each one a thread weaving into the tapestry of Lila's new life, a life he had no part in. Then, in a moment that felt almost surreal, Alex made a joke that struck a chord deep within Nathaniel. "You think you're so good at Mario Kart, but we all know who the real champion is." He winked and added, "Just ask my dad. He taught me everything I know." Nathaniel's heart skipped a beat. The words felt like a dagger, a reminder of all the moments he had lost. Did this young man even know how profound his words were? Did he understand the weight of that title? Nathaniel couldn't help but feel a rush of confusion and intrigue. The connection was undeniable, yet it felt forbidden, like a secret he wasn't meant to uncover. With shaky hands, he signaled to the barista for another coffee, trying to regain his composure. As he awaited his drink, he observed Lila, whose laughter was like music to his ears. She seemed so at ease, so fulfilled. Nathaniel's heart swelled with pride at the woman she had become, yet it was intertwined with a deep sense of loss. He had always known she would be an extraordinary mother. It was one of the reasons he fell in love with her in the first place. The barista placed the steaming cup in front of him, and he took a sip, the rich flavor grounding him momentarily. Yet, his eyes remained fixed on Lila and her children. He noticed how she effortlessly commanded the room, drawing the attention of everyone around her. The ease with which she engaged with them filled him with a bittersweet longing. Okay. Let's do a rematch after lunch, and I promise I'll crush you," Lila exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with competitive fire. "Bring it on, Mom. I've been practicing," Alex replied, puffing out his chest, only to be met with playful eye rolls from his siblings. Nathaniel's heart twisted at the sight. He wanted to be part of that banter, part of that laughter that echoed through his soul. But the thought of interrupting their happiness felt like an invasion. He had no right to step into this chapter of Lila's life, not when he had chosen to walk away all those years ago. His thoughts were interrupted when another young woman, Maya, who had a striking resemblance to him, leaned in closer to Lila. "Mom, do you think we could do a movie night this weekend? I want to show you that film I told you about, the one with the quirky old man who saves the town," she suggested, her voice filled with enthusiasm. "Absolutely. You know I love those feel-good movies," Lila replied, her smile widening as she tousled Maya's hair affectionately. Nathaniel felt a lump form in his throat. This was a family he had never known, yet here they were, living a life he had once dreamed of. He was torn between the desire to reach out and the fear of ruining the happiness they had built together. He took a deep breath, trying to center himself. "Maybe I should just go," he whispered to himself, the thought echoing painfully in his mind. But then he caught sight of Lila again, the way she lit up the room, the way her laughter resonated with warmth. It was a reminder of everything he had lost, everything he still loved. As the laughter continued, Nathaniel felt a strange sense of resolve building within him. He couldn't leave without at least saying hello, without acknowledging the woman who had once been his everything. He had to know if there was still a spark of connection, however faint, between them. With a deep breath, he stood up, his legs shaking slightly as he approached the table. The laughter faded into a soft murmur as Lila's eyes widened in surprise. "Nathaniel," she breathed, her expression a mix of disbelief and something deeper, something that made his heart race. "Hi, Lila," he managed to say, his voice steadied despite the whirlwind of emotions crashing inside him. The young adults turned to look at him, their expressions ranging from curiosity to confusion. Nathaniel's heart pounded as he stood there, the weight of the moment heavy on his shoulders. But for the first time in years, he felt a flicker of hope. Nathaniel sat quietly at his table, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee swirling around him, yet it couldn't mask the storm of emotions brewing inside. He stared out the window, his gaze lost in the vibrant autumn leaves that danced in the wind, reminiscent of the vibrant life he once had with Lila. Every gust of wind seemed to whisper memories long buried, memories of laughter, dreams, and the warmth of their shared moments. "Why does it still hurt?" he murmured to himself, his fingers tracing the rim of the cup. It was a question that had haunted him since the day they decided to part ways. The sun illuminated the cafe, casting a golden glow on the couple at the table next to him, their laughter echoing in stark contrast to the silence that enveloped Nathaniel. He felt a pang of envy, a longing for what he once had, what he had lost. As he glanced back at Lila, nestled among the four young adults, a wave of nostalgia crashed over him. It was as if time had folded back on itself. There she was, the same Lila he had fallen hopelessly in love with all those years ago, yet transformed in a way he never expected. She radiated happiness, her laughter ringing like music, and it became clear that the years had been kinder to her than they had to him. A flashback hit him like a tidal wave, pulling him back to another time, a time filled with hope and dreams. He could almost hear their voices, the way they would talk late into the night about their future, about family and children. "We'll have a beautiful family, Nate," Lila had said, her eyes sparkling with the dreams they built together. "I can feel it. Just wait and see." But the wait had turned into despair. They had fought the demons of infertility together, but each month that passed marked another disappointment, another heart-wrenching reminder of what they could not have. "Maybe it's for the best," Nathaniel had said one evening, the words tasting bitter on his tongue. "Maybe we should focus on our careers instead." Lila had looked at him then, her face a mask of anguish. "You think that's what I want? To give up?" The pain in her voice still echoed in Nathaniel's heart. They had both wanted children, but the burden of grief had drawn them apart, and in the end, they had chosen separation over the weight of unfulfilled dreams. Back in the present, he watched as one of the young men, Alex, leaned in closer to Lila, a joke slipping from his lips that made her burst into laughter. Nathaniel's heart sank. "That's something I would have said," he thought bitterly, the realization hitting him like a cold splash of water. Each laugh, each smile shared among them felt like a direct reflection of him, a part of him that had been lost. Nathaniel tried to shake off the thoughts, but they clung to him like shadows. He remembered the day they had finally decided to part ways, how heavy the air had felt as they sat across from each other, a chasm of unspoken words between them. "We need to find our own happiness," Lila had said, her voice trembling. "I can't keep pretending that everything's okay when it's not." "Maybe time apart will help," Nathaniel had replied, his heart aching. They had both been too stubborn, too broken to see the other's pain, and in their pursuit of healing, they had inadvertently carved a wound that never fully healed. Now, watching Lila with her adopted children, he felt a mix of relief and sorrow wash over him. Relief because she seemed so happy, radiating a joy he hadn't seen in years, sorrow because he couldn't shake the feeling that he might have been a part of that happiness if only things had gone differently. "Is it too late?" he whispered under his breath, wishing for a chance to rewrite their story. But as he sat there, the reality of their choices loomed large, casting a shadow over the possibility of a second chance. Just then, Lila's laughter broke through his thoughts, bright and infectious. Nathaniel's heart swelled and sank at the same time. He wanted to feel happiness for her, but the bitter taste of regret lingered. If only he could reach out and tell her how much he still cared, how much he had missed her. But the fear of rejection froze him in place. He picked up his coffee, taking a sip to steady his nerves. The warmth of the cup against his hands felt grounding, yet his gaze remained fixed on Lila. Her eyes sparkled as she interacted with the young adults, and Nathaniel couldn't help but notice how each of them mirrored traits he recognized: laughter, wit, and a certain glint in their eyes that reminded him of his younger self. A sudden urge to engage overwhelmed him, and he thought about how to approach the conversation. What if they ask about me? The thought sent a shiver down his spine. Would they resent him for disappearing from their lives? Would Lila resent him? He felt trapped in a web of uncertainty, acutely aware that he was a stranger in this new chapter of her life. In that moment, one of the young men turned in his direction, catching Nathaniel's eye. There was something familiar about him, something that tugged at Nathaniel's heartstrings. "Hey, isn't that guy a little too familiar?" he thought, suddenly intrigued. The young man smiled, and Nathaniel felt a flicker of recognition, as if he were looking into a mirror reflecting a past he thought he had left behind. Suddenly, Nathaniel found himself drifting back to his memories, the weight of the past anchoring him. He remembered the nights spent planning their future, Lila's hand in his as they dreamed of a family. "We can do this together, Nate," she had insisted, her eyes filled with determination. "We can overcome anything if we're together." But they hadn't been together long enough to navigate the storm that was infertility, and it had driven a wedge between them that neither had been able to close. He sighed heavily, thinking of how easily life could twist and turn, leaving them both at the mercy of circumstances beyond their control. As if sensing his turmoil, Nathaniel's phone buzzed, startling him. It was a text from an old friend, a reminder of a meeting he had almost forgotten. He glanced back at Lila, who was animatedly discussing something with Alex. The laughter that erupted from their table felt like a distant melody, a sweet reminder of what could have been. Maybe I should just leave, Nathaniel thought, his heart heavy with the weight of the moment. But just as he stood to go, he caught Lila's gaze. It was a fleeting moment, a spark of recognition that sent a jolt through him. She smiled softly, and in that instant, he felt the connection they once shared, igniting hope within him. "Maybe it's not too late," he whispered to himself, the possibility of reconciliation flickering like a candle in the dark. For the first time in years, Nathaniel felt the stirrings of courage. Perhaps he could bridge the chasm that had formed between them, find a way to express the feelings he had buried for so long. But as he prepared to step closer, the weight of the past settled back on his shoulders. Would she welcome him? Would the young adults see him as a part of their lives or merely a ghost from Lila's past? Nathaniel took a deep breath, trying to quell the rising tide of uncertainty that threatened to drown him. In that moment of hesitation, Nathaniel realized that the love they had shared was still alive, flickering like a flame waiting to be rekindled. Yet, the path forward seemed daunting, laden with the complexities of their shared history. He was left grappling with the question that had haunted him for years: could they find a way to move beyond the pain and create something new together? Would love, once lost, be capable of blooming again, even in the most unexpected circumstances? Nathaniel sat at a small table in the cafe, his hands wrapped around a steaming cup of coffee that had long since gone cold. He had been trying to focus on the picturesque view of the autumn leaves swirling outside, but his eyes kept drifting back to Lila. She was radiant, laughing with the four young adults who surrounded her, their faces bright with joy. The sight struck him like a blow. They looked so much like him, their features a mirror of his own youth. Each laugh echoed memories of their shared past, and he fought against the tidal wave of emotions that threatened to drown him. As Lila leaned back in her chair, her laughter rang out, a sound he had once cherished above all else. But now, it felt like a distant echo of a life that had slipped through his fingers. He could see how they interacted, the easy familiarity, the inside jokes, and the way she touched their arms in affection. A sharp pang of longing hit his chest. He felt a mix of admiration and sorrow. Lila appeared so at peace, yet he couldn't help but wonder if he could have been a part of this happiness. Suddenly, their eyes met. Lila's laughter faltered as she caught sight of him, her expression shifting from joy to shock. Nathaniel's heart raced. He had imagined this moment countless times, but now that it was here, he felt utterly unprepared. Her gaze held a world of unspoken words. The years stretched between them like a chasm. Would they bridge it, or would they stand on opposite sides, forever haunted by what had been? Slowly, almost hesitantly, Lila rose from her seat. Nathaniel felt his breath catch in his throat. She walked towards him, her movements graceful yet uncertain, as if she were stepping onto a tightrope. He struggled to maintain eye contact, his heart pounding like a drum in his chest. He could sense the weight of their shared history pressing down on them, a palpable tension that seemed to vibrate in the air. Nathaniel, she said softly, her voice a blend of surprise and something deeper, something more profound. He could see the warmth in her eyes, but there was also an unmistakable flicker of vulnerability. Lila. The sound of her name felt foreign on his tongue, yet achingly familiar. He swallowed hard, trying to find the right words. It's been a long time. It has, she replied, her gaze drifting to the table where the young adults still sat, watching them with curious eyes. I didn't expect to see you here. Nathaniel nodded, feeling a rush of emotions. Neither did I. I was just passing by. Lila's smile returned, albeit faintly. Well, it's good to see you. You look good. Thanks, he said, a hint of a smile breaking through his seriousness. You look happy. Yes, I am, she replied, her eyes sparkling for a moment before her expression turned more serious. These are my kids. She gestured towards the table, and Nathaniel's heart sank at the realization that she had built a life without him. Your kids. The words tasted bitter on his tongue. They look like me. Lila's gaze met his again, and he could sense the weight of her thoughts. They are adopted. I chose them because they remind me of you. Of what we could have had. Her voice trembled slightly, and Nathaniel felt a jolt of surprise mixed with sorrow. The admission hung in the air between them, thick with unresolved feelings. Lila, he began, but she cut him off with a wave of her hand, her eyes glistening. Let me explain, she said, her voice steadying. After everything, I wanted to fill the void. I thought about you a lot. I realized that I wanted to raise children who would carry a piece of you with them. It felt like a way to keep you close, even if you were far away. He struggled to process her words, a whirlwind of emotions swirling inside him. I didn't know you felt that way, he confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. I've thought about you every day. Really? Lila's expression softened, her eyes searching his for sincerity. Even after all this time? Yes, he admitted, the truth pouring out like a dam breaking. I never stopped loving you, Lila. I didn't know how to be there for you. A heavy silence settled between them, filled with the weight of the past. The sounds of the cafe faded into the background as they stood there, two souls connected by a thread of history that refused to be severed. Do you want to meet them? She asked suddenly, her voice breaking the stillness. I mean, they've been asking about you for a while. Nathaniel's heart raced at the prospect. I don't know if that's a good idea, he replied cautiously. I'm not sure how they would take it. I think they would love to meet you. They've heard so much about you already. Lila's invitation hung in the air, and Nathaniel felt a pull toward the idea. It was a chance to connect, to bridge the gap that had formed over the years. Okay, he finally said, his voice steadying as he made the decision. I'd like that. Lila smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. Come on, let's introduce you. She led him to the table, where the four young adults sat, their expressions a mix of curiosity and excitement. Guys, this is Nathaniel, Lila said, her voice filled with warmth. Your dad. The word hung in the air, heavy with significance. Nathaniel's pulse quickened as he faced the young adults, their faces a blend of his features and Lila's beauty. They looked at him with wide eyes, and a moment of silence passed before one of them, a young man with curly hair and bright eyes, broke the tension. Hi, I'm Alex, he said, extending his hand. I've heard a lot about you. Nathaniel took his hand, feeling a strange mix of pride and apprehension. It's nice to meet you, Alex. Are you really our dad? Maya, a girl with striking features that mirrored Nathaniel's, asked, her voice laced with both disbelief and excitement. Yes, he replied, feeling the weight of the moment settle on his shoulders. I am. Cool, another young man exclaimed, his enthusiasm infectious. I've been wanting to know more about you. Nathaniel's heart swelled at their warmth, but he couldn't shake the anxiety gnawing at him. I'm not sure what you want to know, he said, glancing at Lila for support. Everything. Maya said, her eyes sparkling. Like, what was it like being an architect? And what were you like when you were young? Lila watched, her expression a mixture of hope and nostalgia. Nathaniel could see the similarities in their laughter and energy, and it filled him with a sense of connection he hadn't anticipated. Well, I guess I was a bit of a dreamer, he began, his voice gaining strength as he slipped into storytelling. I loved building things, creating spaces where people could feel at home. The more he spoke, the more he felt the walls between him and the young adults start to crumble. They listened intently, their eyes wide with curiosity and admiration. Nathaniel found himself smiling, sharing anecdotes from his youth, and the laughter that erupted around the table felt like a balm to his soul. As the conversation flowed, Lila observed from the sidelines, her heart swelling with a mix of pride and love. She could see the connection blooming between Nathaniel and the children, and it ignited a flicker of hope in her heart. They were building a bridge between the past and the future, one story at a time. In that moment, Nathaniel felt a sense of belonging he hadn't felt in years. The laughter, the shared memories, and the unexpected warmth of this new family enveloped him, offering a glimpse of a future that felt both familiar and new. Nathaniel sat at his table, his heart racing as he tried to process the whirlwind of emotions that had taken hold of him since spotting Lila in the cafe. The laughter and chatter of the group at her table seemed to create a barrier between him and the memories that flooded back. Each chuckle from the young men felt like a reminder of what could have been, what he had lost, and the life they had once dreamed of together. He leaned forward, pretending to read the menu, but his gaze remained fixed on Lila. She was radiant, her laughter dancing in the air along with the crisp autumn breeze that wafted through the open cafe door. The golden light caught the edges of her hair, illuminating the joy that seemed to radiate from her. It was a sight he had longed for during their years of separation, yet now it felt like a bittersweet reminder of the love that lingered in his heart. As he watched, one of the young men, Alex, spoke up. You know, my mom always says that you're the best architect in Portland. I wish I could see some of your buildings. He flashed a wide grin, and Nathaniel felt a pang in his chest at the mention of Lila's words. Was he really still in her thoughts after all this time? Oh, come on, Alex. Lila laughed, rolling her eyes playfully. He's just a regular guy who happened to get lucky with a few designs. She looked at Nathaniel, a glimmer of something, was it nostalgia, in her eyes. Nathaniel's heart raced as he considered the implications. Could it be that she still thought of him? The thought sent waves of warmth through him and yet made the chill of his isolation even more pronounced. He took a deep breath and gathered the courage to approach their table, but the weight of his hesitation held him back. Instead, he remained a silent observer, absorbing every detail of the scene. Remember that time we went to that architecture tour? Maya, another young man, asked, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. You were so excited about that building with the green roof. I thought you were going to explode. Nathaniel leaned closer, intrigued. He recognized that building it was one of his proudest designs. I can't believe she remembers that, he thought. It was a day filled with wonder, laughter, and shared dreams, a day when everything felt possible. She does, Alex chimed in, nudging Maya. Mom's always talking about how passionate you were about your work and how you loved to make the world a better place. She says it's one of the things that made her fall in love with you. Nathaniel's heart sank. Hearing those words, he felt a rush of conflicting emotions. Would they be interested in knowing more about him? Would they want to connect with the man who once held their mother's heart? He felt a sense of urgency to bridge the gap, but fear held him in place. As the conversation continued, Nathaniel found himself unwillingly drawn into the dialogue. Each young man's laughter echoed with familiar notes, and he couldn't help but see bits of himself reflected back in their faces. The shared humor, the way they gestured when they spoke, even the twinkle of mischief in their eyes, it mirrored his own youth. "Do you ever wonder about your biological dad?" Maya asked, her voice suddenly serious. "I mean, we know you were great, but we don't know anything about him. Mom doesn't talk much about him." The question hung heavy in the air, and Nathaniel felt his throat tighten. His instinct was to reveal himself, to step into the role of the father they were curious about, yet the weight of his past choices stopped him. Should he let them know who he was or continue to stand in the shadows? He cleared his throat, trying to muster the right words. He started, his voice faltering. "I think it's natural to wonder about where you come from. I mean, everyone has a story, right?" He forced a smile, but it felt fragile, as if it might shatter at any moment. "Yeah, but it would be cool to know more," Alex said, leaning forward with genuine curiosity. "Like, what was he like? Did he have any hobbies? How did he meet Mom?" Nathaniel's heart raced. They were asking questions he had long avoided, but the warmth in their voices drew him in. "Your mom and I met in college," he managed, his voice softer now. "We both shared a passion for art and design. I remember those days as some of the happiest of my life." "Wow," Maya said, her eyes sparkling with interest. "Do you think she still loves him?" The question caught him off guard. Nathaniel locked eyes with Lila and felt a flicker of something deep within the connection they once shared, the love that had endured through the years. "I think love is a complicated thing," he replied, choosing his words carefully. "Sometimes, it stays with you, even when life takes you in different directions." The young men exchanged glances, clearly intrigued by the emotional honesty of the conversation. Nathaniel felt a strange bond forming, not just as a stranger but as someone who could belong. "Maybe you should ask her," Maya suggested, her voice hopeful. "She might have some stories to share." Nathaniel's heart raced at the thought. Could he really step into this new reality? The idea of sharing his past with Lila's children both exhilarated and terrified him. What if they didn't accept him? What if he was just an echo of someone long gone? As the conversation continued, Nathaniel found himself enveloped in the warmth of this newfound connection. He shared humorous tales from his youth, stories that made the young men laugh until their sides hurt. Each laugh felt like a thread weaving him closer to them, binding their lives together in an unexpected tapestry of shared experiences. "You know," Nathaniel said, his voice steadying, "I've always believed that family isn't just about blood. It's about the connections we make and the love we share." "Totally," Alex agreed, nodding in earnest. "Family is what you make it. And it sounds like you were a big part of that for Mom." Nathaniel felt a swell of hope. Maybe there was a way forward, a way to be part of Lila's life again, even if it was through her children. But doubt crept in, reminding him of the years lost, the pain of separation. "Do you think she'd want to see you again?" Maya asked, breaking through his thoughts. Nathaniel hesitated, considering the question carefully. "I hope so," he replied finally. "I've never stopped caring about her. Sometimes, I wish I could turn back time and change things." "Maybe you can't change the past," Alex said thoughtfully, "but you can create a new future. That's what Mom did, right? She found happiness again, and maybe you can too." Nathaniel felt a flicker of hope ignite within him. "You're right," he said, a smile breaking through his uncertainty. "Maybe it's time I stop living in the past and start thinking about what could be." As the conversation continued, Nathaniel realized that he was standing at a precipice. The choice was his, whether to reveal himself as their biological father or continue as a stranger in their lives. Each moment spent with them was a chance to bridge the gap, to explore the deep connections that had been forged in love, even amidst the pain of their shared history. And as he looked into their eyes, filled with curiosity and warmth, Nathaniel couldn't shake the feeling that perhaps this was the beginning of something beautiful, a new chapter waiting to be written. Nathaniel sat at the cafe, his heart racing as he watched Lila interact with the 4 young adults who had become her children. They were so vibrant, so full of life, and yet they bore a striking resemblance to him. The sight stirred a whirlwind of emotions within him: joy for Lila, a sense of loss for what could have been, and an overwhelming curiosity about the lives they had built without him. As Lila beckoned him over, Nathaniel felt a mix of apprehension and excitement. It had been 25 years since they had last spoken, and yet, there was an undeniable gravity to their connection. When she finally approached, the smile she wore faltered slightly, replaced by a delicate uncertainty. "Nathaniel," Lila said softly, her voice tinged with nostalgia. "I didn't expect to see you here." "Neither did I," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. The air between them crackled with unspoken words, memories that lingered like ghosts. "I see you've been busy," he said, glancing at the young adults who gathered around them. "You have a beautiful family." Lila's eyes sparkled with pride. "They're my everything. I adopted them a few years ago. They've brought so much joy into my life." Nathaniel nodded, feeling a pang in his chest. "I'm glad to hear that. You deserve happiness." Lila's gaze softened. "And you? How have you been?" I've been working a lot," he replied. "Architecture keeps me busy. But I think about you often." "I think about you too," she confessed, her voice thick with emotion. "You were such an important part of my life." As they spoke, Nathaniel felt an overwhelming urge to know more about the young adults who stood nearby, listening intently. He could see shades of himself in their features, the slight tilt of their eyes, the curve of their smiles. "Can I ask, what are their names?" "Of course," Lila said, turning to the group. "Guys, this is Nathaniel. He's your father's name." "Whoa, that's cool," one of the young men exclaimed, stepping forward. "I'm Alex. Nice to meet you." Nathaniel smiled, taken aback by Alex's enthusiasm. "Nice to meet you too, Alex." "And I'm Maya," a young woman said, her voice warm and inviting. "We've heard a lot about you." "Really?" Nathaniel asked, curiosity piquing his interest. "What has your mother told you?" Maya exchanged a glance with Lila, who nodded encouragingly. "She talks about you sometimes, especially when we ask about our biological father," Maya said. "I've always wanted to know more about him." Nathaniel's heart skipped a beat. The question lingered in the air, heavy with implication. "What do you want to know?" he asked, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "Well, what were you like when you were younger?" Maya asked, a hint of eagerness in her tone. "Was Mom right about you being an amazing architect?" Lila chuckled softly, her eyes sparkling with affection. "He was more than that. Nathaniel was passionate about everything he did. He made even the most mundane things exciting." Nathaniel felt a warmth spread through him at her words. "I tried," he said with a small smile. "But I was also stubborn, which wasn't always easy on your mother." Lila nodded, her expression contemplative. "Stubbornness can be a double-edged sword," she agreed. "But it also meant you were dedicated. You always put your heart into your work." As they conversed, Nathaniel couldn't help but notice the similarities between himself and the young adults. They had a spark, a vibrancy that resonated with him. His heart swelled with a sense of pride he hadn't anticipated. "Do you guys like architecture?" he asked, eager to connect further. "Actually, I do," Alex replied enthusiastically. "I've always been fascinated by how buildings can shape a city. I want to study it in college." "Really?" Nathaniel said, his interest piqued. "What kind of architecture are you drawn to?" "I love modern designs," Alex declared. "They're so sleek and innovative. I want to create something that can inspire people." Nathaniel nodded approvingly. "That's a great ambition. I'd love to see what you create one day." Maya chimed in, "What about you, Nathaniel? What kind of architecture do you specialize in?" I focus on sustainable design, he explained, feeling a sense of purpose as he spoke. I believe in creating spaces that are not only beautiful but also environmentally friendly. Alex's eyes lit up. That's awesome. I think that's the future of architecture. As Nathaniel spoke with the young adults, he could see how Lila had shaped their lives, instilling in them values that mirrored his own. The realization hit him hard: these kids were part of him, a continuation of the love he once shared with Lila. Eventually, Lila pulled Nathaniel aside, her expression serious yet soft. "Can we talk alone for a moment?" she asked, casting a glance at the young adults who were now engrossed in a conversation of their own. "Of course," he replied, his heart pounding as they moved to a quieter corner of the cafe. "I wanted to tell you how much it means to me that you're here," Lila began, her voice trembling slightly. "These years have been a journey, Nathaniel. You know how much I struggled after everything." Nathaniel nodded, the memories of their infertility struggles flooding back. "I know. We both suffered in silence." Lila's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "But adopting these kids changed my life. They filled a void I thought I would never overcome. Being a mother brought me back to life." "I'm so glad to hear that," Nathaniel said, his voice thick with emotion. "You deserve all the happiness in the world." Lila took a deep breath, her gaze searching his. "I've thought about you often. I never wanted to lose you, Nathaniel. I just didn't know how to cope with our situation. I've missed you every day," he confessed, his heart aching at her honesty. "I've carried that pain with me all this time." "I never wanted to hurt you," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "But I had to find a way to heal. The kids, they saved me." As they stood there, a silence enveloped them, a silence filled with understanding and lingering affection. Nathaniel could see the love still flickering in Lila's eyes, a flame that had never truly extinguished. "I wish things had been different," he said finally, breaking the silence. "We could have faced it together." Lila nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I know. But we both chose our paths. And now I see you standing here, and it feels like a second chance." Nathaniel's heart raced at her words. "What do you mean?" "I mean that maybe we can find a way to be part of each other's lives again," Lila said, her voice resolute yet vulnerable. "These kids are a part of you, Nathaniel. They deserve to know you." As Nathaniel absorbed her words, a rush of hope surged within him. Perhaps this was the moment he had been waiting for, a chance to reconnect, to build a bridge to the past while looking toward the future. "I want that too," he said, his voice steady. "But I need to know if you're ready for it." Lila wiped her tears, a soft smile breaking through. "I've never stopped loving you, Nathaniel. I just didn't know how to show it." In that moment, surrounded by the warmth of their shared history and the potential for new beginnings, Nathaniel felt a flicker of hope ignite. The journey ahead would not be easy, but perhaps, together, they could rewrite their story. Nathaniel stood at the edge of the park, his heart racing as he watched Lila and the four young adults, who resembled him so much, laughing and playing frisbee. The autumn sun bathed the scene in a warm glow, the leaves creating a beautiful mosaic of gold and crimson on the ground. He felt a wave of nostalgia wash over him, mixed with a sense of longing. He wanted to be part of this moment, to share in the joy that Lila had cultivated in her life, but insecurities gnawed at him. "Hey, come on, Nathaniel. Don't just stand there," called Alex, one of the young men, as he tossed the frisbee in Nathaniel's direction. Nathaniel hesitated for a moment, then took a few steps forward, catching the disc with a practiced hand. A smile crept onto his face despite himself. "Nice throw," Nathaniel said, throwing it back with a little more force than necessary. Alex laughed, easily catching it. "Thanks. I've been working on it." Alex replied with a grin. "You should join us. It's more fun with more players." Nathaniel looked over at Lila, who was now watching him with an encouraging smile, and for a moment, it felt like they were back in their youth, sharing simple moments of joy. He nodded, swallowing his fears. "All right, I'm in." As he jogged over to join them, Nathaniel felt a rush of adrenaline. The young adults welcomed him eagerly, and he quickly fell into the rhythm of their game. With each throw and catch, he felt a piece of his heart reconnecting with Lila's world. The laughter that filled the air was infectious, and for the first time since spotting them at the cafe, he felt a sense of belonging. "Okay, now we need to come up with a team name," Maya, a vibrant young woman with a bright smile, suggested as she wiped her brow. "I mean, we can't just keep calling ourselves Team We're All Friends. How about the Prescott Flyers?" Nathaniel suggested, a playful glint in his eyes. "Prescott? Is that your last name?" one of the other boys, Leo, asked, tilting his head in curiosity. "Yeah, it is." "How did you guess?" Nathaniel replied, feeling a connection spark in the air. "Because we look like you, right?" Alex chimed in, laughter spilling from his lips. "We seriously could be your kids." Nathaniel chuckled, but the comment struck a chord deep within him. "Well, maybe I could be your long-lost uncle," he joked, trying to ease the tension in his heart. "More like a long-lost dad," Maya teased, nudging him playfully. "You're tall and have the same smile. It's uncanny." "Yeah, and you both have this similar vibe," Leo added, gesturing between Nathaniel and the group. "It's like you're all connected somehow." Nathaniel felt a lump in his throat. He wanted to tell them the truth, to share with them the history that bound him and Lila together, but he hesitated. Was it his place to bring up the past? Would that change how they viewed him? Instead, he focused on the game, letting the laughter and camaraderie wash over him. After a spirited match, they all collapsed onto the grass, breathing heavily but with smiles plastered across their faces. Maya looked over at Nathaniel, her expression suddenly serious. "So, what do you do for a living, Nathaniel?" she asked, her curiosity piqued. "I'm an architect," he replied, pride creeping into his voice. "I design buildings and spaces that people live in, work in. It's a way to create something lasting." "Wow, that sounds amazing," she exclaimed. "Do you have any projects around here?" "Yeah, I worked on the new community center downtown," he said, feeling the warmth of her interest. "It's a place for everyone, with art studios and a library. I wanted it to be a place that brought people together." "That's so cool. I love art," Maya said, her eyes sparkling. "Maybe I could have an art show there one day." Nathaniel smiled, impressed by her ambition. "I bet that would be incredible. You should definitely pursue that." Speaking of pursuing things, Alex interjected, "What about you, Nathaniel? Do you have any hobbies outside of work?" Nathaniel paused, searching for the right words. "I used to love painting," he admitted. "But I haven't picked up a brush in years." "Why not?" Alex asked, genuinely curious. "Life just got busy, I guess," Nathaniel replied, his voice trailing off. He felt a bittersweet pang in his chest, remembering the days when he and Lila would paint together, dreaming of the future. "You should start again," Maya encouraged. "You never know what you might create." "I think I might," he said, feeling a flicker of inspiration igniting within him. As they chatted, Nathaniel felt a bond forming with each of the young adults, particularly with Maya, whose enthusiasm seemed contagious. They shared stories about their interests, their dreams, and Nathaniel found himself opening up more than he expected. "What about you, Maya? What do you want to do after school?" he asked, genuinely interested. "I want to be an artist, but also a teacher," she said, her voice filled with determination. "I think art can change lives, and I want to share that with others." "I can see that," Nathaniel said, feeling a swell of pride. "You have such passion. I bet you'd inspire a lot of students." "Thanks. That means a lot," Maya replied, her cheeks flushing with appreciation. The conversation continued to flow, and Nathaniel felt more at ease, but a part of him still wrestled with the weight of his emotions. He glanced over at Lila, who was watching them with a soft smile. The way she looked at him, filled with warmth and understanding, reminded him of all the years they shared, and the love that never really faded. As the sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the park, Nathaniel realized he had never felt so alive in years. The connection he had with Lila's children was something he hadn't anticipated, but it filled a void he didn't know existed. "Alright, who's up for ice cream?" Lila called out, breaking the spell of introspection. "Me," they all shouted in unison, springing to their feet. Nathaniel smiled, his heart lighter than it had been for a long time. As they walked together, laughter bubbling around them, he couldn't shake the feeling that perhaps this was the beginning of something new, a chance to forge a different kind of family, one where love could grow and flourish once more. Nathaniel felt a sense of growing comfort among Lila's children as they sat together in a bustling restaurant, the air filled with the tantalizing aromas of spices and the lively chatter of diners. The soft glow of overhead lights cast warm shadows across their table, where plates of steaming food and glasses of sparkling water created an inviting atmosphere. He couldn't shake the lingering feeling of disbelief that he was sharing a meal with four young people who bore such striking resemblances to him, each of them embodying fragments of his past life with Lila. Maya, the most outspoken of the group, was animatedly describing her latest art project, her expressive hands punctuating her words. "I painted this giant mural on the side of our school. It's of a phoenix rising from the ashes," she exclaimed, her bright eyes sparkling with excitement. "I wanted it to represent hope and renewal, you know. Like how we all have the power to rise up no matter what challenges we face." Nathaniel leaned in, genuinely intrigued. "That sounds amazing, Maya. What inspired you to choose a phoenix?" "The story of the phoenix has always resonated with me," she replied, her expression earnest. "I think it's incredible how something can be destroyed and yet come back even stronger. Kind of like how you can reinvent yourself after tough times. I guess I just see that in our family, you know." Her words struck a chord deep within Nathaniel. He felt a familiar pang of longing for the life he once dreamed of, a vision that had seemed so attainable when he and Lila were together. "You're right," he said softly. "Reinvention is a powerful thing. We all have our struggles, but it's how we navigate through them that counts." Across the table, Alex, a tall young man with a mop of dark hair, chimed in, "Lila always says you should never let your past define you. She taught us to embrace who we are and keep moving forward." He looked at Nathaniel, curiosity flickering in his eyes. "What about you? Did you have a tough time growing up?" Nathaniel paused, taken aback by the directness of the question. He had spent years building walls around his past, afraid to let anyone in. Yet, sitting here with Lila's children, those walls felt more permeable than ever. "I wouldn't say it was tough, but I faced my share of challenges. I lost my way for a while," he admitted, his voice steady but laced with vulnerability. "But I learned from those experiences, and they shaped who I am today." "That's cool," Maya said, her enthusiasm unwavering. "Sometimes, I feel like I'm just figuring everything out as I go. Like, one day I want to be a painter, and the next, I'm convinced I should be a lawyer. But I guess that's part of it, right? Exploring different paths." Nathaniel smiled, impressed by her introspection. "Absolutely. Life is about exploration. You're young, and you have the world at your feet. Take your time to discover what truly resonates with you." As the conversation flowed, Lila sat back, observing the interaction with a mix of pride and nostalgia. She could see the flickers of Nathaniel's personality shining through in her children, their wit, their depth, their passion for life. It reminded her of the man she once loved so deeply. Just then, one of the younger boys, Jake, spoke up. "You know, Lila always talks about this amazing guy from her past. I think she really admired him," he said playfully, glancing between Nathaniel and Lila with a knowing smile. Lila chuckled softly, a hint of color rising in her cheeks. "Oh really? I wonder who that could be," she teased, her eyes sparkling. Nathaniel felt a flush of warmth at Jake's words. "I'm flattered," he replied, trying to keep the mood light despite the emotions swirling within him. "I hope he lived up to the hype." "He definitely did," Jake affirmed, meeting Nathaniel's gaze with an intensity that made Nathaniel's heart skip a beat. "Lila always mentions how great you were at everything. Like, you were the best architect in town." "I'm not sure about the best, but I did my best," Nathaniel replied, a modest smile creeping onto his face. "Architecture has always been my passion. It's about creating spaces where people can feel at home." "That's so cool," Maya said, clearly fascinated. "Do you think you could help me design my dream house one day? I have so many ideas." Nathaniel's heart warmed at her enthusiasm. "Of course. I'd love to help you with that, Maya. I have a feeling your dream house will be one of a kind." As they shared stories and laughter, Nathaniel felt the barriers he had built over the years beginning to crumble. The connection he was forming with Lila's children was unlike anything he had anticipated. He dared to let himself feel a sense of belonging, a feeling he had long since buried. During a lull in the conversation, Lila leaned forward, her expression turning serious. "You know, Nathaniel," she began, her voice soft yet unwavering, "the kids often ask about their father. I think they sense something special about you." Nathaniel's heart raced. "What do you tell them?" he managed to ask, his voice barely above a whisper. "I tell them that their father was an incredible man, someone who had a great impact on my life," she said slowly, her gaze searching his. "But I also tell them that family comes in many forms. They know they are loved, and that's what matters most." A heavy silence settled over the table as Nathaniel processed her words. He felt a mixture of elation and trepidation. What if they knew the truth? What if they discovered the man they had grown to admire was also a man who had failed to be there when it mattered most? Just then, Alex broke the silence. "So, Nathaniel, how did you and Lila meet? We've heard so many stories, but it would be cool to hear it from you." Nathaniel chuckled lightly, the tension easing slightly. "Ah, the classic how we met story," he said, leaning back in his chair as memories flooded back. "We met in college. I was a struggling architecture student, and she was a brilliant art major. I remember being captivated by her work. She had this incredible ability to bring life to her canvases." Lila smiled at the memory, her heart swelling with affection. "I remember the first time I saw Nathaniel's sketches. They were unlike anything I had ever seen. I was instantly drawn to his creativity. You should have seen him, though," Maya added with a grin. "He was such a dork. Always lost in his own world, sketching away." "Hey now," Nathaniel interjected, feigning offense. "I was simply focused on my art." Laughter erupted around the table, the warmth of the moment enveloping them. "But you know," Nathaniel continued, his tone becoming more reflective, "meeting Lila changed everything for me. She taught me to see the world through an artist's eyes. She inspired me to push boundaries and explore my creativity." Lila's gaze softened, and for a moment, they were both transported back to those carefree days of youth, where love and dreams intertwined seamlessly. The conversation drifted to lighter topics, but Nathaniel felt a lingering weight in the air. He wanted to share more, to connect deeper, but he was unsure of how to navigate the complexities of the moment. As the evening wore on, Nathaniel could sense something shifting within him, a desire to open up fully but also a fear of what that might mean for all of them. Lila had given him a glimpse of a family he had lost but had also unknowingly brought him back into the fold of their lives. While they finished their meal, Nathaniel caught Lila's eye across the table. In that brief moment, an unspoken understanding passed between them, a silent acknowledgement of the love that had once thrived and could potentially be rekindled. As they stood to leave, Nathaniel felt a newfound sense of hope blooming within him. Perhaps this was just the beginning, a chance to reclaim not only his connection with Lila but also to become a part of the lives of those who were, in essence, pieces of his own heart. Nathaniel sat across from Lila in the cozy corner of the restaurant, the soft glow of candlelight flickering between them. The air was thick with unspoken words, and the distant chatter of other patrons faded into a background hum as he searched her eyes for a hint of what lay beneath the surface. He couldn't shake the feeling that this was a moment teetering on the edge of something monumental. "Lila," he began, his voice barely above a whisper, "I never stopped thinking about you. Not for a single day." The weight of his admission hung heavily in the air, charged with the emotions he had kept bottled up for so long. Lila looked down, her fingers tracing the rim of her wine glass. "Nathaniel, that's a lot to take in." The tremor in her voice betrayed the calm facade she had tried to maintain. She took a deep breath, lifting her gaze back to meet his. "I didn't know if you'd even want to see me again after everything." "I've wanted to," he confessed, his heart pounding in his chest. "I've wanted to reach out, to talk, to understand. But I was afraid. Afraid of what you'd say, afraid of reopening old wounds." He paused, searching her expression for a sign of understanding. "It's been hard, Lila." "Hard for me too," she admitted, her voice thick with emotion. "I thought moving on would be easier, but every step felt like I was carrying a piece of you with me. I always wondered if I'd made the right choice." Her eyes glistened, revealing the vulnerability she had tried to conceal. "I thought I could fill the void with the kids, but I realize now that I was just masking the pain." Nathaniel leaned forward, his heart aching for her. "You were never meant to fill a void. You deserve to be happy. And I should have been there to support you, to share that happiness." There was a long silence, filled only by the sound of cutlery clinking in the background. "I never wanted to hurt you, Lila. I just didn't know how to cope with everything we were going through." Lila nodded slowly, her brow furrowing in thought. "We were so young, Nathaniel. We didn't have the tools to deal with such profound loss. It was overwhelming." She took a sip of her wine, gathering her thoughts. The infertility, the pressure. It was suffocating. "I wanted to make it work, I really did, but it felt like we were drifting further apart instead of coming together. That's what haunts me," he replied, his voice low and earnest. "The thought that I could have done something differently. I should have fought harder for us." Nathaniel's heart raced as he laid bare his regrets. "I let fear guide my decisions, and I lost you because of it. I thought it was for the best," she said, her voice trembling. "We both needed to find our own paths. But seeing you again. It's like a floodgate has opened. I've missed you, Nathaniel. I've missed us." A lump formed in Nathaniel's throat as he processed her words. "You don't know how much that means to me," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I've tried to move on, but every time I did, I felt this emptiness. Like I was trying to fill a space that only you could occupy." He paused, his eyes searching hers for clarity. "I never stopped loving you, Lila. That love has always been there, buried beneath the pain." Lila's eyes glistened with tears as she struggled to hold back her emotions. "I thought I could bury it too," she admitted, her voice cracking. "But every time I saw the kids laugh or succeed, I felt this ache inside me. I wanted to share those moments with you. I wanted you to see them grow." "Tell me about them," Nathaniel urged, his heart swelling with pride and longing. "What are they like?" Lila smiled through her tears, a warmth spreading across her face. "They're incredible. Alex is so witty, always cracking jokes. Maya has this fierce determination, she wants to be an artist. And the twins, they keep me on my toes. They're adventurous, always planning their next big escapade." The passion in her voice was unmistakable, and Nathaniel felt a surge of pride for these young souls he had yet to meet. Sounds like they take after their mother, Nathaniel said, a genuine smile breaking through his earlier tension. And maybe a bit of their father too. The atmosphere shifted slightly, the weight of their shared past making way for a tentative connection, a flicker of hope. You're a part of them, Nathaniel, Lila said softly, her voice laced with sincerity. They don't know it yet, but they're a part of you too. I've always wanted them to know who you are, what you meant to me. His heart raced at her words, but doubt lingered in his mind. But how? What if I'm not the man they need? What if I disappoint them? Lila reached across the table, placing her hand over his. You're their father, Nathaniel. You're a part of their story, regardless of what happened between us. They deserve to know you, and you deserve to know them. But what if I'm not ready, he stammered, the fear creeping back into his chest. What if I mess everything up? Lila squeezed his hand gently. You won't. You're still you, Nathaniel. You're still the man I fell in love with. There's so much time ahead of us, time to heal, to reconnect, to be a family again. The idea of being a father again, of stepping into that role despite the years that had passed, felt both exhilarating and terrifying. It's so much to process, he said, his voice shaky. I didn't expect to see you today, let alone have this conversation. I didn't either, Lila admitted, her expression softening. But I think it was meant to happen. We've both carried this burden for too long. Nathaniel took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. You're right. I've spent so many years wondering what could have been. Maybe it's time for us to find out what can still be. Lila's eyes sparkled with hope, and for the first time, Nathaniel felt like he was looking at a future rather than a past. Let's take it one step at a time, she suggested, her voice filled with warmth. We can start with the kids. They're going to love you, Nathaniel. I know it. His heart swelled at her words, the fear slowly giving way to something more hopeful. Okay, he said, his voice steadying. Let's do it. Let's take that step together. As they sat there, hands entwined, the shadows of their shared past began to lift, revealing a path forward. For the first time in years, Nathaniel felt a flicker of hope, a chance to rediscover the love that had once defined them, a chance to build something new amid the remnants of what had been.